It started with a simple mistake, a wrong number, just a few calls a day. But within a week, those calls turned into chaos. Strangers yelling, drivers confused, orders going missing, and my dad, a calm, patient man, was slowly being pushed to his breaking point. The worst part? The man responsible didn't care, and that was his biggest mistake. Intro CTA. Before we get into this story, if you enjoy real-life revenge stories that feel like movies, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and comment. Wrong number. Trust me, this story doesn't go where you think it will. My dad has always been a calm man, not the kind who raises his voice, not the kind who argues, and definitely not the kind who seeks revenge. He was the type of person who believed, if you just stayed patient long enough, things would sort themselves out. Back in his 20s, he owned a small pharmacy. Nothing fancy, just a narrow shop tucked between two older buildings, on a busy street that never really slept. The kind of place where the doorbell jingled every time someone walked in, where the smell of antiseptic mixed with old wood shelf, where regular customers didn't even need to say what they wanted, because my dad already knew the daily routine. Every morning, he'd open the shop before sunrise. The street would still be quiet, just the occasional car passing by, or a distant bus groaning as it stopped. He'd unlock the door, step inside, and take a deep breath. That moment, right before the day started, was his favorite. No noise, no pressure, no problems, just peace. He'd flip the lights on, check inventory, organize the counter, and then, like clockwork, the phone would ring. The old phone system. Now this was a time when things were changing. The old switchboard system was fading out. Before that, people didn't dial directly. They'd call an operator, tell them the number, the city, and the operator would connect the call. It was slower, but it worked. Now everything was becoming automated. Area codes were being introduced. Machines were taking over, and like most transitions, things didn't go smoothly. The first wrong call came on a quiet morning. My dad picked up casually. "Hello, pharmacy." A rough voice replied immediately. "Yeah, I'm calling about the delivery. Where am I supposed to drop this load?" My dad paused. "Delivery? What delivery?" he asked calmly. There was a brief silence, then irritation. "The shipment. From Ottawa. I've been driving all night, man." My dad frowned slightly. "I think you have the wrong number." A sigh on the other end. "What? This is the trucking office, right?" "No," my dad replied gently. "This is a pharmacy." Another pause. Then a muttered curse. "Damn it, they gave me the wrong number again." Click. The line went dead. My dad shrugged it off. It wasn't unusual. People made mistakes all the time. He went back to organizing the shelves. The second call. 10 minutes later. The phone rang again. Same tone. Same urgency. "Yeah, I'm running late. Tell them I'll be there in 2 hours." My dad blinked. "I think you meant to call someone else." "What? Isn't this the dispatch?" "No." "Pharmacy." Silence. Then frustration. "Man, seriously?" Click. The third call. By noon, it had happened again, and again, and again. Each call slightly more irritated than the last. Each person more convinced they had dialed correctly. Each one expecting answers. My dad didn't have the realization. By the fifth call, my dad stopped and leaned against the counter. Something wasn't right. This wasn't random anymore. This was a pattern. Every caller mentioned the same thing. Deliveries, trucks, route, shipments, all pointing to one thing. A trucking company. Connecting the dots. Later that day, during a rare quiet moment, my dad looked at his phone number written on a notepad. Then he started asking callers one simple question. "What number are you trying to reach?" And that's when it clicked. Every single one of them gave him the same 7-digit. Exactly the same as his. The only difference? They were trying to reach a business in another city. The system glitched. Because of the new system, if someone dialed just the 7-digit, the call didn't always go where it was supposed to, and somehow, those calls were being routed straight to my dad's pharmacy. Patience. At first, he handled it the only way he knew how. With patience, every time the phone rang, he would explain calmly, "You need to dial the area code first. The correct number is. Try again with this." He even started keeping a small paper next to the phone, with the correct number written down, so he wouldn't have to think. The next day, the calls continued. Not fewer, not slower, more. Now it wasn't just drivers. It was customers, angry ones. "Where is my shipment? Why hasn't it arrived? I've been waiting for hours." My dad would close his eyes briefly, take a breath, and explain again. "Wrong number, wrong place. Please call the correct one." By the third day, his routine was broken. The peaceful mornings were gone. The silence replaced with constant ringing. He couldn't focus, couldn't work properly. Even when customers were standing in front of him, the phone kept interrupting. Ring, ring, ring. Each time, another problem that wasn't his. Internal frustration. He never showed anger, but inside, it was building. "This isn't my responsibility. Why do I have to deal with this? Why isn't it stopping?" Still, he stayed calm, because that's who he was. By the 5th day, it had gotten worse, way worse. Now he was getting around 20 calls a day, sometimes more. Drivers yelling, customers complaining, people blaming him for things he had nothing to do with. And for the first time, my dad felt something shift inside him. Not anger, not yet, but something close. The thought. That evening, as he closed the shop, he stared at the phone for a long moment. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just a system issue anymore. If the calls weren't stopping, that meant one thing. The trucking company wasn't doing anything about it. Decision. And that's when he made a decision. A simple one. Reasonable. Fair. He would call them. Explain the situation. Work it out like adult. Because surely, any reasonable business owner would want to fix a problem like this, right? The next morning, before opening the shop, he picked up the phone, looked at the number written on the paper, took a deep breath, and dialed. Cliffhanger end. The line started ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, someone picked up, and the moment that man spoke, my dad realized something chilling. This wasn't going to be a simple conversation. The man on the other end of the line wasn't confused. He wasn't apologetic. He wasn't even interested. And within seconds, a simple conversation turned into something else entirely. Something that would change everything. Short CTA. Before we continue, comment below. He shouldn't have said that. Because what happens next is where things start getting out of control. The voice on the other end was rough, confident, almost dismissive. Yeah, no greeting, no introduction, just that single word. My dad paused for half a second, then spoke calmly. "Hello, I believe I've been receiving calls meant for your business." A short silence, then, "And?" The tone caught him off guard. Still, he stayed polite. "There seems to be an issue with the phone system. Our numbers share the same last 7 digits and—" "Yeah, I know that," the man cut in. Flat. Unbothered. My dad blinked. "Oh, so you're aware?" "Of course I am," the man replied, almost bored. "It's a system issue. Not my problem." For a moment, there was silence on both ends. My dad adjusted his grip on the receiver. "I understand it's a system issue," he said carefully. "But your drivers and customers keep calling me. It's been happening constantly for days." "Okay," the man replied. That single word, irritating in its simplicity. My dad's voice remained steady. "I've been redirecting them to your correct number, but the calls aren't slowing down. I was hoping you could inform your team to always use the area code. Another pause, then a faint scoff. Yeah, no. My dad frowned slightly. I'm sorry. I'm not going to tell my workers anything, the man said bluntly. They'll figure it out. Something shifted in the air. Not loud, not explosive, just a subtle crack in patience. My dad inhaled slowly. It's affecting my business, he said, still calm but firmer now. I'm getting dozens of calls a day. This isn't something I can just ignore. Sounds like a you problem. The words landed heavier than they should have. My dad's fingers tightened slightly around the phone. I'm just asking for cooperation, he said. A simple announcement to your staff could fix this. A short laugh came through the line. Dismissive, sharp. Listen, the man said, his tone turning colder. I've got actual work to deal with. Trucks, deliveries, real problems. Each word felt deliberate. I'm not wasting time babysitting people because you're getting a few wrong calls. A few. My dad's jaw tightened. It's not a few. Then unplug your phone, the man shot back instantly. That lingered. For a second, my dad didn't respond. Not because he didn't have anything to say, but because he was realizing something important. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't someone trying to fix a problem. This was someone who simply didn't care. At all. I'm trying to resolve this respectfully, my dad said quietly. And I told you, the man replied, irritation creeping in. I don't care. Silence. Then my dad spoke again. Calm. Measured. Different. In that case, he said slowly, you'll be losing some business. There was a pause. Then, a laugh. Not nervous. Not uncertain. Confident. Mocking. PSSHD, you can't do anything. And before my dad could say another word, click, the line went dead. The aftermath. For a few seconds, my dad just stood there, holding the receiver, listening to nothing, the quiet hum of the line. Then slowly, he placed it back down. The shop was silent, but something had changed. Not outside, inside. That calm patience he had held onto for days was no longer the same. The shift. He didn't explode, didn't yell, didn't slam anything. Instead, he exhaled, long, slow, and looked at the phone. The same phone that had been ringing nonstop for days. The same phone that had turned his peaceful routine into constant interruption. The same phone that now felt like something else entirely. A tool. The first call after. The phone rang again. Almost on cue. My dad stared at it for a second, then picked it up. Hello? A hurried voice answered. Yeah, I'm supposed to pick up a shipment. Where exactly am I going? My dad leaned slightly against the counter. For the first time, he didn't correct them, didn't explain, didn't redirect. Instead, he asked calmly, What's your name? The driver replied without hesitation. Mark. My dad nodded slightly, even though the man couldn't see him. Mark, that shipment? A brief pause. Yeah. It's been cancelled. Silence. What? It's cancelled, my dad repeated evenly. Didn't they tell you? A longer pause this time. No, they didn't say anything about that. Well, my dad said, voice steady. I'm telling you now. No point continuing. So what do I do? My dad looked out the window. The street was just beginning to wake up. People walking. Cars passing. Normal life. You head back, he said simply. Empty. A breath. Are you sure? Yes. Another pause. Then, all right. Click. The line went dead. The feeling. For a moment, my dad just stood there. He expected something. Guilt. Doubt. Second thoughts. But instead, there was only silence. And a strange sense of control. For the first time in days, he wasn't reacting. He wasn't fixing someone else's problem. He wasn't being interrupted. He had decided something. The second call. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. Another driver. Frustrated. I've got a flat tire. Can you let the client know I'll be late? My dad didn't hesitate. No need. What? Just return. Return. Yes, my dad said calmly. Bring the truck back. No delivery needed. Are you serious right now? Yes. A pause. Confusion. Then, all right, man. Whatever you say. Click. The third call. By midday, it happened again, and again, and again. Each call. Another opportunity. Another small decision. Another shift. Day one of chaos. At first, nothing seemed different. The calls continued, just like before. But now, the outcomes were changing. Drivers turning back, deliveries not happening, messages not being passed. And my dad? He continued his day as usual, helping customers, organizing shelves, answering calls. But now, there was something beneath it all, a quiet, controlled intention. The next day, something felt off, subtle at first. The calls had a different tone, more confusion, more urgency. Wait, I was told to go back yesterday. What's going on? Why is my delivery missing? No one told me anything. My dad listened, responded, directed, always calmly, always confidently, never explaining. Escalation. By the afternoon, the calls started overlapping, one driver contradicting another, one customer blaming someone else, voices louder, more frustrated, more desperate, and through it all, my dad remained the same, calm, measured, precise. Panic begins. By the third day, the tension was undeniable. Calls weren't just frequent anymore. They were frantic. What is happening over there? I've got 3 trucks sitting idle. Why are orders being canceled? My dad would listen quietly, then respond with certainty, giving just enough information to send them in the wrong direction. Internal state. Inside, he felt something unusual. Not anger, not revenge, but a strange clarity, as if everything had simplified. 4 days, he had been overwhelmed. Now, everything was structured. Every call had a purpose. Every response had an outcome. Collapse starts. By the 4th day, it was no longer subtle. Something was breaking. Calls started coming from different voices. Not drivers, not customers, supervisors, managers, people trying to piece together what was going wrong. My entire schedule is messed up. Who is giving these instructions? This doesn't make any sense. And still, my dad answered, calmly, carefully, consistently. The shift in power. For the first time, the chaos wasn't in his shop. It wasn't interrupting his life. It was somewhere else, growing, spreading, uncontrollable, and he could feel it. Something different. On the 5th day, the phone rang again, but this time, the voice was different, calm, controlled, authority. Hello. I'd like to inquire about a shipment. My dad straightened slightly. Something about the tone wasn't ordinary. Which shipment? He asked. There was a brief pause. Then, the municipal delivery. That word hung in the air. Municipal. My dad's eyes narrowed slightly. This wasn't a driver. This wasn't a customer. This was someone else. Someone higher. Realization moment. And in that exact moment, as he held the receiver, listening to the calm, measured voice on the other end, something finally clicked. This had gone further than he expected. Much further. The situation wasn't small anymore. It wasn't just a few wrong calls. It wasn't just one careless business owner. This had spread into something bigger, something serious, something that might not be so easy to control anymore. My dad didn't respond immediately. He just listened, silent, still, thinking, because for the first time since this started, He realized something was wrong. That one word, municipal, it changed everything, because in that moment, my dad realized this wasn't just chaos anymore. This was damage. Real damage. The kind that powerful people notice. And once they notice, there's no going back. My dad held the phone, completely still. The voice on the other end remained calm, measured. "Hello," the man said again. "Are you there?" My dad didn't answer immediately, because in that moment, everything connected. Every wrong call, every confused driver, every canceled delivery, every misdirected instruction. It wasn't random anymore. It wasn't small. It was a chain reaction. And now, it had reached the wrong people. People who didn't tolerate mistakes. The realization. My dad slowly exhaled. His mind began replaying the last few days, but differently now. Not as isolated moments, as consequences. That first driver turning back empty. That second one abandoning a delivery. The dozens after that. All following instructions. All trusting the voice on the other end of the phone. His voice. And somewhere, in another city, a business was unraveling. Quietly. Systematically. Completely. The call continues. "Sir," the man said, slightly firmer now, "I need an update on the municipal shipment. It was supposed to arrive yesterday." My dad finally spoke. Calm. Neutral. "The delivery won't be arriving." A pause. "Excuse me. It's been cancelled." Silence. Not confusion this time. Something else. Something sharper. "That is not possible," the man replied. "That shipment is critical." My dad looked at the counter. At the phone. At nothing, really. "It won't be arriving," he repeated. The silence stretched longer now. Then, "Who exactly am I speaking to?" That question hung in the air. And for the first time since this began, my dad didn't answer. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because he understood something deeper. This had gone far enough. The plan, full reveal. You see, this was never about anger. Not really. My dad wasn't trying to destroy anything. At least, not at first. He just wanted the calls to stop. He wanted his quiet mornings back. He wanted his small pharmacy to feel like his again. But when that man laughed, when he said, "You can't do anything," that's when something shifted. Not into rage, into precision. Instead of fighting the problem, my dad became part of it. He didn't block the calls, didn't ignore them, didn't argue. He simply redirected reality. Every instruction he gave was believable, logical, calm. Nothing extreme, nothing suspicious, just small changes. One truck turning back, one delivery delayed, one message altered. Individually, nothing. Together, everything. The chaos full force. By the time the municipal call came in, the damage was already deep. Trucks were out of place, deliveries missing, schedules broken, clients confused, and inside that trucking company, panic had taken over. Phones ringing non-stop, managers arguing, drivers demanding answers, no one understanding what was happening, because from their perspective, everything looked normal. Until it didn't. Back to the call. "Sir," the man said again, voice tighter now. "I'm asking you one more time, who is this?" My dad finally spoke, and this time, his voice was different. Not angry, not sarcastic. Just final. You have the wrong number. And then, he hung up. The silence after. The shop felt different. Not lighter. Not heavier. Just still. For the first time in days. The phone didn't ring immediately after. My dad stood there, looking at it, waiting. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then two. Nothing. The aftermath begins. That day, the calls slowed. Not stopped, but slowed. And when they did come, they were different. Not instructions. Not routine. Questions. What is going on over there? Why are things being canceled? Who is in charge right now? My dad answered simply, "You have the wrong number," and hung up. Cracks show. The next day, fewer calls, but louder, more aggressive. One man shouted, "I've lost 2 contracts because of this." Another, "Do you have any idea what's happening over there?" My dad didn't engage, didn't explain, didn't correct. Wrong number. Click, collapse. By the 3rd day, almost no calls, just a few scattered ones. Desperate, confused, broken, and then, nothing. Somewhere else, in another city, a man sat in his office, the same man who had laughed, who had dismissed, who had said, "You can't do anything," now surrounded by reports, missed deliveries, lost contract, angry clients, including one very important one, municipal. He replayed conversations, instructions, calls, trying to find the source, trying to understand how everything went wrong, and then, slowly, piece by piece, he began to see it, not clearly, not completely, but enough to realize, this wasn't random, this wasn't system failure, this was deliberate, respect, and in that realization, something unexpected happened, not just anger, not just frustration, respect, because whoever had done this, had done it quietly, carefully, without noise, without threats, without ever revealing themselves. Back at the pharmacy, life returned. Slowly, the morning silence came back, the peaceful routine, the familiar rhythm. The phone rang, but only for real calls, real customers, real needs. And my dad? He went back to being who he always was, calm, patient, focused. Final reflection. Years later, when he told me this story, he didn't smile, didn't brag, didn't sound proud. He just said something simple. Some people don't understand words. He paused, then added quietly, so sometimes you have to let them understand consequences. Lesson. Not every fight needs shouting. Not every problem needs force. Sometimes, the most powerful response is quiet, precise, and patient, because the loudest damage is often the one no one sees coming. Final moment. I asked him one last question. Did you ever hear from that man again? He shook his head. No. Then after a pause. People like that only learn once. Final CTA. If you made it this far, you already know. This wasn't just a revenge story. It was a lesson. So tell me in the comments, was my dad right or did he go too far? And if you want more real stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story might be even crazier.